If you've ever made chicken breast and it came out dry, bland, and kind of sad, don't you worry, this video is for you. Today, I'm gonna show you the easiest way to make super juicy, flavorful chicken, just a cast iron pan, a few simple seasonings, and the oven. No fancy marinades, no overcomplicated steps, just a straight up good, delicious chicken. For the full ingredient list, check the description box below, but enough talking, let's get cooking. Most of the time when people say that they want to make a chicken, the cut that at least I'm thinking they're thinking about is the boneless, skinless chicken breast. So here I have 4 chicken breasts, and I want to point out that they are very even in size. You don't want to be trying to cook chicken that has one large one small one, because they're going to cook at different rates. You could totally do that, but you're going to have to pull them at different times. It's best to start off with chicken breasts of a very similar size. So when you're looking at your chicken, when you're buying it at the supermarket, try to find breasts that are about the same size. This is an optional step, but I like to trim up the chicken so you don't get any pieces that get overly cooked, possibly burnt. If we take a look at some of this chicken, this is just regular supermarket chicken breast. You could see that there's some pieces on the edge that they're not exactly part of the chicken breast. It's got like some of this connective tissue hanging off, and then there's this piece here that's piece of the other breast on the other side. What I like to do is trim a lot of these off, so just so the breast is nice and uniform. So I'm gonna just trim off all these extra pieces. So anything that looks like it's like hanging off and not part of like that like center, perfectly round breast, we're gonna trim off. I'm also gonna trim off any of this like connective tissue here. This is a piece of skin that's hanging off. And I'm also gonna check for any bone fragments. A lot of this commercial chicken, it is cut by machines. Machines cut right through the bones and they're not gonna notice. Maybe if it's hand cut, even the people that are hand cutting it, they're still missing. So I wanna make sure that the chicken breast is nice, round, uniform, and doesn't have any pieces hanging off that are gonna get burnt or overly cooked. And if you don't want to, you do not have to do this step. You can totally skip this step. Just know that you're gonna have some pieces that are gonna be hanging off that may look a little less than appetizing. See, like this piece here only has this tiny little bit of fat on the edge that just needed a little bit of cut off, not like the other ones. But this piece, look at this. You're just gonna go around. You can see the line where the chicken meets the whatever's extra, and we'll just take our knife and just pull it right around there. Maybe there'll be like a little, like a bloodline like this, and we can easily just trim that right off too. Everything else here looks pretty good. So not that much waste here. Now let's season our chicken breast. We're only gonna use 3 things to season it, and I wanted to really keep the seasoning on this like really simple. So if I'm going bare bones, making just a regular chicken breast for whatever, maybe it's for a sandwich, maybe it's for a wrap, maybe it's going on top of a salad, or maybe I'm just eating a piece of chicken like I would eat a piece of steak, we're gonna use 3 things to season it. You could go beyond this, but this is my basic 3. So the first thing we're gonna use is we're gonna use a little olive oil, and we're gonna use this as a binder to coat the chicken so that the spices evenly stick to the chicken. Chicken breast is really lean, so it doesn't render out a lot of fat, so we're gonna have to add a little fat to the outside of it. 1, to help it brown, and 2, it's gonna help the spices adhere to the outside of the chicken very evenly. It's also gonna allow the spices to bloom a little bit. So remember, we're putting dried stuff on there, so the moisture from the oil is gonna go into our spices and seasoning, and it's gonna help release a lot of the flavor. And we don't need much. We're just gonna put just a couple of tablespoons on top, just enough to coat the chicken. Doesn't need to drown it. Now we're gonna use some of my base seasoning. This is a blend of garlic powder, onion powder, salt, and pepper. And I call this a base seasoning because this is the base of seasoning. I could put stuff beyond this, which I'm going to, but this is gonna be our base. If you don't have the granulated garlic and the granulated onion and you just wanna use salt and pepper, go ahead and do that, but this already has that in there. So we're gonna put a little bit right on top. And now to back up the base season, we're gonna add a little smoked paprika. So the smoked paprika is gonna add a really nice color. It's also gonna add an additional layer of flavor of that smokiness. Regular paprika, unless you're using a lot of it, really doesn't have much of a flavor, but the smoked paprika, that's where it's at. And we're gonna use just a little bit less. something I like to do once I put the dry seasoning on top is just add a touch more oil on top of the dried seasoning just to help mix it around the chicken a little bit better. So maybe another teaspoon or two on top. And now I'm just gonna get in there with my hands and mix the chicken with the spices and the oil so it's all evenly coated. It's not rocket science. You just go in there and you just like mix it up. And I like to take like the pieces of the chicken and like rub them together. I'll rub them on top of the bowl, and I'm just trying to get as much of the oil and the spices that I put on top of here onto the chicken and get it as evenly as possible. So rub the chicken together, rub it on the bowl. Eventually it all gets mixed around very nicely. And what you're looking for is a nice, evenly seasoned piece of chicken. You can see that the seasoning's all nice and spread out all over the chicken. Backside, front side, everything inside, maybe even like the little groove that's here, but that chicken is all nice and evenly seasoned. And if you want to use a different spice blend, you don't want to use my base seasoning, maybe you don't make it, but you probably should. You can use anything that's going to have just salt in it and some pepper. Maybe it doesn't even have to have pepper, but salt is going to be the essential component. So if I wanted to strip this all the way down, I would just put like some salt and some pepper, but maybe you don't need the pepper, but the salt is definitely the essential component. I would avoid any spices that have sauces that have lots of sugar, and not because I want to avoid sugar, but when we sear this chicken, things that have sugar in them, they're gonna burn. We want this to brown and not burn. I'm gonna stay away from anything that's got too high of a sugar content or any sauces that tend to burn rather than brown. Soy sauce tends to be one of them. I see a lot of soy sauce inside chicken. Might be okay for the grill, but we're doing a pan sear and then we're going inside the oven. That stuff can tend to get really black, really burned before it gets brown. Now I'm just gonna let this chicken sit inside the bowl for about 10 to 15 minutes just to get the chicken a little closer to room temperature. When proteins are cold, they tend to cook a little unevenly. When proteins are a little warmer, they tend to cook a little bit more evenly with a little less effort. And sometimes I see when chicken's really cold, it'll start to ooze out the protein, like you'll see like white stuff starting to form. When the chicken is really close to room temperature, I don't see anything like that. In addition to letting it come up to room temperature, we're giving time for the seasoning and the oil to interact with each other and for those flavors to get released. There's also salt in here that's pulling out some moisture off the outside of the chicken, and that's gonna help a better browning process once we throw this in the pan. So let's wait for about 10 to 15 minutes, let everything come up to temperature, let all those spices bloom, and then we're gonna head over to the stove and put a sear on this chicken. So to cook this chicken and make it maximally flavorful, what we're gonna do is we are going to sear the chicken breast in this cast iron pan. Right now I have it getting hot over a medium, maybe just a touch over like medium high heat. I want the pan hot but not smoking. This is gonna be way less of a temperature than like what we would like cook a hamburger or like a steak on. We wanna get some browning on the outside because when we brown proteins, we are adding flavor on the outside through a Maillard reaction that is going to produce that nice, delicious golden brown color. The chicken is going to be really hard to cook to full temperature in the pan, so what we're going to do is we're going to put the pan and the chicken inside the oven to let it finish cooking so it cooks all the way through. Right now I have this oven preheated to 375 degrees. You could do 400 if you're in a little bit of a rush, but 375 is a really nice temperature that's going to cook the chicken very evenly without overcooking the outside or the thinner pieces of chicken as opposed to the thickest piece of the chicken breast. And I'm choosing a cast iron pan because the cast iron pan is going to conduct heat. I think everybody should have a cast iron pan. It's the cheapest, best, and most versatile pan that you can ever have in the kitchen. One of the benefits of a cast iron pan is the handle and the whole pan are made of metal, so they can go in and out of the oven. I would not do this with a pan that has like a plastic handle or any plastic grommets on this. You put a pan like that in the oven, you are going to seriously mess up the handle, and those pans are not meant to go in the oven, they're just meant to go on the stove. So if you're gonna do this with a different pan, just make sure it is completely oven safe. Now that this pan is hot and I can feel that the heat's coming off it, it's just beginning to smoke. So now I know it's getting really close to hot. We don't want this thing crazy ripping smoke. I'm gonna put a little bit of oil inside the pan just to get some oil on the bottom to conduct the heat. And now I'm gonna take my chicken and put it presentation side down. So the chicken's got the cut side and then the presentation side on top. I'm gonna put this down in the pan and it should give me a nice sizzle. So now over this medium-ish heat, I'm gonna cook it for about 2.5, maybe 3 minutes each side until we get a nice golden brown color without it being burnt on both sides. Then once we get the nice color on both sides of the chicken, we're gonna send it into the oven. At 375, should take about, like, for a chicken breast this size, these are some really big chicken breasts, maybe about 10, 15, maybe 20 minutes, but we're gonna cook it until we get to an internal temperature of about 160 degrees. Then we're gonna pull it out of the oven and slowly the temperature will start to climb to about 165. And that's where chicken breast is perfectly juicy without being undercooked or overcooked. With chicken breast, because it's lean, it has a very thin margin of where it's undercooked, where it's perfectly cooked, and where it is overcooked and dry. So if your chicken breast is dry, you're just overcooking it. That's where everybody needs a meat thermometer. It takes all the guesswork out of it. A lot of people ask, how long does it take to cook chicken? It depends a lot. It depends on what the temperature of the oven is. It depends on the thickness of the chicken breast. It depends on a lot of factors, but we're gonna try to get this all done in less than 30 minutes. Also, while searing proteins, don't mess with it too much. Let it sit in the pan, let the heat do its thing. When it gets close, you'll start to see the edges start to get a little bit brown. You can start checking it, but don't start moving it all around the pan. That doesn't do anything helpful, and it probably delays the browning process. So now I'm gonna start to flip the chicken over. You can start to see really nice color on the outside. I probably wanna get this just a little bit further, so I'm gonna flip that back over and just let it go maybe for another minute. So the chicken breast may not all brown at the same rate. Like this piece is starting to look really nice. Look at this golden brown color that we got here on the chicken. This is exactly what you're looking for. So you can see here, you got some paler pieces, but those weren't touching the pan. But this part right here is nice and brown and nothing's really burnt on it, but it looks like it's starting to cook very nicely. Here too, we're getting really nice browning on this chicken. These pieces were just slightly bigger, so they may take just a little bit longer to brown. You can see too that my pan is not overcrowded. It's gonna be really hard to brown. Things are gonna steam rather than sear. So make sure that on a 13-inch, 12-inch cast iron pan like this, I'll do 4. Maybe if they're small, I could fit 5, but once you start getting a 6, 7, you really start jamming them in there. Nothing's getting brown, and it's not gonna get the color that you're looking for. So now you can see that they all have this really nice, like tannish, brownish color. Nothing's burnt. It's got nice dark color on, especially on the edges here. There's a lot of the spices that are starting to toast. We're gonna let this cook for another 2 minutes on this side. So even though we don't see the bottom of the chicken, we still want color on there because that's the additional flavor that we're building into this chicken breast. Chicken breast doesn't have a whole lot of natural flavor to it, so putting a browning on it plus the seasoning, that's what's gonna make this chicken super flavorful. So after about 2 minutes on the bottom side, we're gonna add one additional ingredient. So this is gonna be a little white wine vinegar. This is gonna be the perfect, very mild acid that's gonna help bump up some flavor in here. Acid helps amplify flavor, so I'm not gonna drown it in the vinegar, but I'm just gonna put just a touch on top. And you don't have to use vinegar. You can use maybe an apple cider vinegar. You can use a lemon juice, but something with a little acid to help amplify the flavor of everything that we got going on inside the pan. This is also gonna help deglaze the bottom of the pan a little bit because there's a lot of flavor and all the burnt stuff on the bottom. You put a little liquid in here, it's gonna start to loosen up some of that. It's gonna attach to the chicken a little bit. It's gonna add a really nice flavor. You're never gonna taste it, it's just gonna taste very flavorful. I'm just gonna put the tiniest little amount of vinegar on top and then we're gonna send this in the oven. So now I'm gonna shut the heat off on this and I'm gonna put this pan in the oven for about 10 or 15 minutes before I check the temperature. So this chicken was in the oven a little bit over 15 minutes, but let's see how we did. So if we take a look at internal temp on here, you know, we're in the low, almost at 160, so about perfect. And what I like to do is I like to leave it, and I check a couple pieces, perfect, still in the 160 range. I like to keep it in the cast iron pan just for a few minutes, just to get that gradual heat that's coming from the cast iron pan to continue to bring up the temperature on here. But we're looking for a temp, I think chicken's safe in between like 165, 175 tops. Don't let any of these social media influencers make you think that it has to be exactly 165. Chicken has a range, it's about like a 10-degree range, but not much past that. Once we start getting above 175, it'll start to get dry. 180, we're dry. 185, really dry. 190, 200, this thing is dry and toast. But right around that 165 mark, as this comes up to temperature, is gonna be perfectly juicy, but let's find that out after we cut it. So we're gonna let this chicken chill out for about 5, maybe 10 minutes. If you cut into the chicken too early, the juice is gonna go everywhere, and then it's gonna be dry even though it was up to temperature. So you gotta let things reduce their temperature so the juices stay inside the chicken after you cut it. One thing I like to do that gives us a very nice visual touch is we're gonna take a little bit of this finely chopped parsley and we're just gonna give this a sprinkle on top. And I like to do this inside the pan because it'll stick to the chicken really nicely while it doesn't get all over the plate that we're going to. I really don't like at restaurants when the parsley sprinkled on the plate in addition to. So we're just gonna give this just a little light sprinkle on top of the fresh chopped parsley. And because remember, we eat with our eyes first. So people are gonna look at this chicken, they're gonna see the beautiful brown color, they're gonna see the fresh chopped parsley, and it's gonna look really good even before they taste it. And I think that's a big component to making simple food really nice. And this is as simple gets. This was super simple chicken, but I want people to look at it and go, ooh, that chicken looks good. So this chicken breast has been cooling down for about 5 or 10 minutes. The pan is still warm. I like using the cast iron pan because if I want to serve this, I can serve this in the pan because 1, it looks nice, and 2, it's gonna help keep the food warm because we want it to cool down where it's not hot anymore, so when I cut into it, the juices just don't go everywhere, but at the same time, I do want the protein warm. Enough talking about this chicken, enough looking at it, let's eat it. So if we cut into it, just cut in right through the middle. You can see that the chicken is still very moist, so if I give it a little bit of a squeeze, you can see that it's got nice juice into it. Doesn't look super dry, but it definitely looks fully cooked. No pink chicken. No pink chicken, no rubber chicken. But again, if we give this a little bit of squeeze, it's got that nice juice to the inside of it. And if we cut off a piece, so you can see how the chicken still got some nice juice to it. No pink, no rubber, but if it looks good, it's probably got to taste good. So let's see what this tastes like. Who says chicken is boring? This is delicious, and it was so simple. I mean, even this little bit of like this little like plate sauce that's here, that's super flavorful, so good. I mean, this chicken could go on top of a salad, in a wrap, on a sandwich. You could just give me this piece of chicken like this and I'll eat it like a steak. This is fantastic, and it was so simple. And I really wanted to show a very simple one. No brining, no making the chicken 2 days in advance. I took this chicken from the supermarket to the pan to the plate in less than an hour. If you're making dinner and you want chicken, I mean, this is the chicken you could make. And I love having a lot of protein on hand, so I'll make a lot of this chicken. I'll just throw it in the fridge, cut it up cold, maybe warm it up. But this is the most simple, most basic, most delicious way you will ever make chicken breast at home. You know, if we skipped some of the steps, if we didn't do like the browning step on the outside, or maybe we seasoned it a little bit more plainly, maybe it wouldn't taste this good. But I mean, I taste a little bit of the smoke. The vinegar that we put in, you do not taste vinegar. What you taste is flavor, because acid and salt enhance flavor. And when your food is bland, it's probably missing a little salt, a little vinegar, but you put those things in and now all of a sudden flavors pop and they taste really, really good. I could eat this chicken all day, every day, and never get tired of it. If this is your first time here on my channel, hit like on this video if you did like it. Subscribe to my channel so you can get more cooking videos. And if you're into simple chicken recipes, check out my pan-seared chicken thighs. If you like garlic and you like chicken, that is a really nice, simple recipe. I will see you there. Thanks.